what's going on, but it's like glitching.
Here's the part. That's Are we good?
You still hear it?
I can hear it. I mean, you're not as clear as you were before, but
everybody,
I can
hear the live. Welcome to the live. You must have high energy because it's all crazy. Hold on one second.
Yeah, it's glitchy.
Is it ending? Wow,
yeah.
So crazy. Well,
yeah.
Welcome in, everybody. Welcome to the Buddhist Biohacker. What is happening?
Oh, it's.
There is some
kind of. Yeah. And it was so clear.
Okay. Did I fix it?
You fixed it now. Yeah.
Okay. Geez. Well, welcome in, everybody. I'm Lisa Gunshore, your host. Welcome to the Buddhist Biohacker podcast, and welcome to my YouTube channel, which is now titled Channeling the Divine. So if you haven't noted the name change, go ahead and do that now. Don't forget to like and subscribe. And I know energy's high when my technology goes crazy, which is what it's doing right now. And I'm really happy to be in here. It has been a while. I have not been here with everybody and really excited for our guest today. I'm really happy to welcome with us Jennifer Dimitriou. And Jennifer is a classically trained ballet dancer, which reminds me of my childhood because I took ballet and I loved it so much, and now has this beautiful Instagram and brand that I love called the Graceful Movement, and found you, Jennifer, I don't know, 6 or 9 months ago or something, and really wanted to connect with you. So welcome to the show.
Thank you so much, Lisa. And it's an honor to be here. Hello, community.
Yes, absolutely. And for everybody who's joining in the live, you can please feel free to share where you're from, how you're feeling. If you have questions throughout the live stream, please share that as well. And we're going to dive right in, Jennifer, because I want to really start out with, for you, the question I had was, tell me about one of your awakening moments. Like, what was the moment where, because, you know, when you read your bio and I see your work, you know, you were in ballet and you did advertising and yoga and Pilates and all these things. And there's a deeper frequency that you carry, this spiritual frequency. And I would love to hear like where that came from, and what, if you think of an awakening moment in your life, like when did your life start to transform or move into a different direction?
That's a great question. And I was literally thinking about that. So we're definitely aligned. I think when I was working in advertising and I was taking yoga, I was like in my early 20s taking yoga, and yoga kind of became my sort of healing my physical wounds, my emotional wounds. I was really drawn to yoga. And so then that was sort of this moment where I enjoyed working in advertising, but I always knew that there was some piece of me. I was a psychology major. You know, I was always interested in some sort of therapy, helping. And so that was the moment where I thought, I want to delve deeper into yoga. So I decided to do my first teacher training with Alan Finger. It was Ishta in New York City. And so I kept the advertising going, but it was that moment where I knew that I'm not going to be doing advertising forever. And that I really wanted, it wasn't the right moment to teach, but I knew that I wanted to start to move towards that path. And that teacher training was sort of it just changed the trajectory of my view on life. And I met one of my closest friends today. And I didn't know. I knew that, it's funny because at that moment, I knew that I didn't want to just teach yoga. So I didn't want to just, give my advertising up and just start to teach yoga, but I knew that I wanted somehow to start teaching. And so I was kind of doing both advertising and teaching during lunch, on the weekends, and starting to get my feet wet. But, and it was this sort of real mindfulness moment that I'd never been sort of that mindful about myself and starting to learn stuff about myself that I just never knew was there.
Yeah, there's a presence to the yoga teacher training, I think. And I'm curious, you're in advertising and, or we're in advertising, and my degree is in fashion marketing, and I do all my own stuff for my brand, my website, and emails. And there's something interesting, and I'm curious what your take and insight is on it, but there's something interesting about the creative flow of movement and spiritual practice with the creative flow that comes with branding and marketing. And, there's a lot of folks in this community, to give you some context, who are all owners and coaches and running their own practices. And so I think it's a worthy discussion, because there's an underlying spiritual current to how we brand ourselves, how we market ourselves, and the creative, the Shakti that goes into that. I'm just curious what your thoughts are about that.
Yeah, I completely agree. I think that, I always say that, like we really use the physical body as a vessel to become more productive in our life, more connected. As we become more connected to ourselves, we become more connected to, what's the external around us, to people, to situations, to our job. And so I definitely feel like, and it's that mindfulness piece that I really encourage people to practice within the Graceful Movement. It's about focusing on those little details that really do make a difference. And it's and it's funny, because I started to, in advertising, I moved into human resources, and I actually started to create a plan on how to, with movement, on how to get people to become more connected to themselves so they can become more productive. And I find movement has just been part of my life since I was 3. So it has been my own therapy, and how I've dealt with different things in my life. It's my constant. I don't know what I would do without it. And so, it's, if that's what I'm sorry, I feel like I just kind of went off on a tangent. There's so many little points.
I love your tangent. I love it. And I want to go deeper into it, because because I agree. I mean, there's something in our Ayurveda, it's that vata, it's air and space that makes you, that creative movement has to happen all the time. And I'm with you. When I feel stagnant and stodgy, it's because I'm sitting in my body and I'm not moving and getting all that energy out. So what does moving energy feel like for you? You offer all these really great little moments on your Instagram of different pieces of movement. And I'm curious, what have you experienced around moving energy with the physical practice? Like, what does that feel like and look like for you? And what do you teach in your practice and in your classes?
Well, yeah, for me, I always say, I call it my attitude adjustment. Just by getting up and doing, I always call it the lateral stretching the waist, as my attitude adjustment. Like, it really does shift my energy, my mood in the morning. So it's, the things that I do, stretching, even if it's a downward dog at the counter. But it's amazing how just a moment of, focusing on your breath or doing a simple movement just sort of shifts the energy. And I talk a lot about energy in my class. I used to say, especially in my classes in Paris, and I would say, check whatever happened right before this class at the door. So we come in to make some sort of change in our energy. And we come in as a community. And so when we come in with stagnant, energy or whatever, negative energy, we transcend that. And I think it's super important to just be aware of that. Like, you're coming to a class for a reason, right? To shift the energy. And so we come in, and then hopefully you'll walk out, and you'll realize that whatever you were dealing with outside the room can be dealt with, because you've just shifted the energy to open up, to possibility, to something better. And so I always, when I walk into my class, and I think that's what inspires me, because my classes are really organic and really different and not scripted. So, and everyone always says, you know, they don't know what they're up against, because they're always so different. But I get inspired by the energy that's in front of me, yeah, and then from there, it's amazing. So the point is that I always look at their faces right at that moment, at the beginning of class, and then after. And you can always see the energy shift on their faces, you know, and hopefully that's a good thing, but you can always see, you know, just a softness in their face and a, you know, wow, I feel better, right? It's just about just feeling better when you walk out.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, what would you say to folks who, because I think we've all been there, where we're like, oh, I just can't do that today. Like, I can't get started. I can't get moving. I can't, you know, and those of us that have been there and then go do it anyways, it's like, oh, of course I needed to do that. But what would you say to everyone who, you know, is interested in connecting with their body and interested in moving? Because I think this is kind of like a squirrel question, because I have like multiple layers of this question. Because like, what do you say to someone who wants to get started? And, you know, your practice is very unique to me. I mean, I feel like what I love about it is it's this connection of dance and yoga and strength and the divine feminine energy. So it's this blend. So I think, you know, if they want to get connected in that way, like, what is the inspiration for them to find you and or to find the movement, you know?
I think it's such a good question. And I think that's probably one of the biggest challenges. And I hear all the time, especially for online platforms, you know, like 65% of people are entering into these platforms and they have no idea where to start, what teacher, what class. And, you know, and it's funny, the first thing I say is, yes, it is hard, but it is about just giving yourself, you know, a pat on the back for just arriving, and you know, like little things like keeping your mat. I keep a mat down, like it's like in the corner there in the kitchen. I always keep keeping a mat down, like, or maybe it's like right next to your bed, basically. But just keeping that little, because I find like the mat is my, you know, is sort of my my canvas. So think of that little sacred space. So little things like that, like have your mat down, have it down all the time. So you can just, whenever you feel it and whenever you feel stressed or anxiety, and know that like, you don't need to do an hour. I say, do 5 minutes of something that just you need, that feels good to you at that moment. So maybe it's just a little stretch. And maybe you try to, you know, you carve out a time, like I'm going to do that, I don't know, and as soon as I get up in the morning or at 3 o'clock in the afternoon, whenever, but like a consistent time that you're going to just do something, and you don't know what that is, but just go sit there and then just see what comes out. And maybe that moment is just about just listening to your breath. Because I feel like every day changes. So you don't know, and your practice will change from day to day, depending on what's going on around you. But starting small, I would say, you know, especially if you're starting out, like really look for those beginner teachers that, you know, they'll lay the foundation. Because we're really pushed, I think, today to like pick up heavy weights, and there's lots of sort of apparatus out there and all sorts of different types of exercise. But I feel like start small, start basic, like learn the foundations first, and then test it and see if you like it. See if you like that style or movement. And, you know, little by little, it's like, you know, it sounds cliche, but baby steps, like, you know, 1 minute at a time.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I love what you're saying, because it's the divine feminine. You know, you said something I think that's really poignant, which is we don't always know every day. And I think there's this masculine energy that all of us run, especially powerful, strong women run the masculine energy, where we want, like, I know I do it. Like, I need to have set time and I'm going to do this thing and I'm going to do this Monday through Friday and this is going to happen. And I think there's something really powerful. And I think that's what drew me to your platform more than anything was when I watched you move is it's not, like you said, it's not scripted. It's not chaturanga, all the things. It's like, let's just move our bodies and be in the body. And I think that's very uncomfortable for a lot of us who have experienced trauma, especially because we don't feel safe without that rigid structure. And so how do you break, like, was there a point for you where you kind of broke out of structure, or was it always for you out of structure? I'm just curious.
I mean, I have to say, I'm not an extreme person, so I don't like to subscribe to rigid sort of things. So, and it is hard. My class is hard to describe because it is so like, I'm really, it is like a mad scientist kind of thing, I'm just kind of, but I think that, I just want to share that movement is for everyone. It doesn't discriminate. And I think it is that moment. And I really try to unpack that for women to, we have to just let go of what it looks like, and if it doesn't look perfect or it doesn't look like the cover of Yoga Journal but what does it feel like? And that's that, and that's, I feel like I come to one of the principles of my movement is intuition, like really trusting yourself and trusting on the mat, what feels good and what doesn't feel good, right? So that, there are movements maybe that like there are poses now in yoga I just don't do because it doesn't feel good to me anymore. And so I don't do the crazy yoga poses that I used to do because it doesn't feel good. It doesn't serve me. I don't need to. So, and I feel like there is this pressure to, this power it out and be, like I can do it all. And, but I really think that you don't need to punish yourself. You really don't need to punish your body for the exercise to be effective. And in fact, I think it's the opposite. So when you're doing something that your body responds to and is like, wow, it's like feeding your body with good nutrition, your body will look like that, right? It'll look like what you're feeding it and how you're moving. But I think that it is super hard especially for us women to sort of, transform into that because we're always trying to control what we look like, and because society tells us that we're supposed to be a certain way. But I will say, like one of my clients just said to me the other day, your method is body changing and life changing, and that to me was the life changing part was super made me really happy because that's the point, right? It's about what you work on the mat, is about transcending that off the mat.
Yeah. Well, and I love what you said, like, we don't have to beat up on ourselves, and it's easy. We do it when we're not moving, and then when we're moving, and it's still self-loathing. And I think that's, to be honest, Jennifer, like that's what I am still working on. Like in all these years and all this spiritual work, I'm still working on my own self-loathing of like, I don't need to punish myself. And, if I'm not moving, I'm not moving. And if I'm moving, I'm moving. But either way, it shouldn't be this, like, I think there's so much pressure. And especially with yoga, it feels like yoga has become this power thing. And it's really, it wants to be more about the spiritual aspects than this like power, burn out my rotator cuff experience.
Well, and I think I love that you brought that up too. And I think it's about, like you said, like I'm working on that self-loathing, and me too. I always say like, I didn't, become a yoga teacher because I'm naturally blissful. I mean, it's like, I gravitated towards yoga because I needed it. I needed to heal my own grew up in a, very competitive environment. But I think it's like that acknowledgement of, we're working on it, right? And it's a process, and it's okay to feel that we're all working on that. I think, our life is truly a journey, and it's about trial and error, and always a process, and always learning. And, no matter how old we are, right, we're still always learning something new. But I think it's about slowing down, trying to slow down, really practicing slowing down so that you have space to learn, to observe, to grow, to feel. And then from there, then there's like, oh, okay, perspective and possibility. And I will say one thing, and I will shut up, that I had a mentor. I'm just like, I'm going on, but I'm excited. There was a teacher, a mentor in my life, Jillian Pransky. And if you ever get a chance, she's incredible. She's very into restorative therapeutic yoga. And I remember she would always say, begin your practice at a level from 1 to 10, begin your practice at a level 2, 3. And because we go into it, right, at a 10, and it's like you're exhausting all your energy up front. So by the end of it, you're depleted, but you're also missing all that stuff in between. That's like all the messages, all the sensations that allow you to explore and to play. And I thought that was that's something that always stuck with me. So as I approach my mat, and that's the advice I would give, like, as you approach your practice, be gentle and reserve your energy. You don't need to go to a 10 right away. And you may never need to go to a 10.
I love what you said, reserve your energy. And that is it. I think, for those of us who are always blowing out our energy, like giving to others, overdoing, overcommitting, overthinking, overworking, like all these things we do, especially in this world, in the way that we have all grown up and been accustomed to and programmed to, it's hard for us to reserve ourselves. I always think of, I went to culinary school right out of high school. So went to school for that. And so I love food, and I love chefs, and I love Gordon Ramsay. And one of the things that he always says that sticks out to me is he talks to, chefs on his shows about editing themselves. And that really stuck out to me with like what you're saying with the reserve your energy, is this idea of, because editing is really a refinement, right? So I think there's something to editing ourselves, pulling ourselves in, containment, the reserving, like you're saying. Like there's something really powerful about holding that creative energy within ourselves and not feeling like we have to like flail it out everywhere all the time. And that happens in exercise and fitness more than anything else. And all of the, dance and Pilates and weightlifting and resistance training, all these things is the less we do, the more work it actually is. I feel like there's something so powerful to holding a pose in yoga for like 3 or 4 minutes. That's really hard. It's a lot easier to push through a sun salutation than it is to take an hour to do one sun salutation and refine and edit and where are your toes and where are your fingers. I think there's something so beautiful and powerful about that is really being missed, like in mainstream culture with practice.
It's so true. It is so true. And I think, that's what I love to talk about in the Graceful Movement. It's all the details of your hands and your feet. I mean, when you watch a dancer, a beautiful dancer, what makes them watchable is their connection and their expression through their hands and, of course, their feet, right? Think about it. It's like when your hand is dead, there is no life to the arm, to the rest of the body. As soon as the fingers and, they become alive, right? The muscles, the posture, you transcend this energy. And that's what I really love to emphasize, that it's not about how many reps you do, but it's how you move that makes it all so effective. And also, like, that's what makes it so mindful, right? Because as soon as you're like really focusing on what you're doing, you're in it and you are nowhere else, and you're focusing on that moment. And that's what creates this inner peace, right? And pushes away that anxiety, because you were there, completely connected. And it is something that I think we miss. I feel like, yeah, we're missing the details. We're missing those little nuances and connections that are so valuable on the mat and off the mat, right? It's like,
well, it pulls you into presence, is what it feels like to me. I mean, when you start to look at, I love the hands and feet. When you start to look at your hands and your feet, you become very present. You can't really go anywhere else with your brain. And and when you're holding a posture, or you're really paying attention to those, minute details. Yes. It's the presence. And it's also the grace. And I want to talk about that. You call your brand the Graceful Movement, and grace has such a power to me. It's the divine feminine. It's what I call the Mary complex, but Mother Mary, Mary Magdalene, there's Mother Teresa, whatever grouping you want to put in there. There's so many Isis, whatever goddesses you want to throw in there. But that, to me, the grace. And I'm curious, like, what birthed the name of your brand, and what is grace to you at this time and this present moment?
I think I always, from when I was small, my mom will tell the story that when I was born, a nurse actually said, "I've never seen a more graceful baby." So it's always been sort of attached to me. And, ever since I was a little girl, I was dancing around the house. And that's how my mom said, "Do you want to go to dance class?" And that's how it started, because I was just always just a mover. Like, that was a part of my spirit. But to me, grace is not, I think that sometimes people think it means, running around in a tutu, or you have to be a ballerina to have grace. And every one of us has grace. And it's an action of being gentle with yourself, but also it's like you're a graceful warrior, right? That is strong, but very powerful, but in a gentle spirit. And so I think it's that grace that makes the practice, that bit of grace just makes the practice feel good, because there's no intention of harm on yourself. It's purely, just a beautiful sort of gentle spirit within, but finding your true power, which we all have. Does that make sense? I don't know if that came across well, but
yeah, no, I mean, there's something about, and it goes back to the reservation of energy you were talking about, when you can hold, I took ballet when I was a kid, and then went back in my 20s, and went kind of intense in this mission I was going to get in pointe shoes in my 20s. So I was like very intense about it. And, and I love it very much. And I think there's a link, ballet and yoga link to me, because they're so alignment driven. At least for me, I'm an alignment focused instructor. And so for me, like, there's so much about that. But there's something about ballet in particular to me, that there's a call to action to, like, hold all your energy in, because how you move your hand, where your arm is, what your feet are doing, like that, those moments are so potent. And then when you take that into something like yoga, and even Pilates, right? Because Pilates to me is again, it's a reservation of energy. It's not weightlifting. It's different. There's a different energy.
It's a different energy than.
I can't get into how much I love the work you're doing, because I think that's where like naturally in my own body is where I'm going with my practice. Is I don't really want to teach like a regular class. I'm not interested in vinyasa. Like I'm interested in like, what does your body want to do? How do you want to move it? And how do we hold our energy in spaces, movements, poses? So I don't know, I'm going on my own little tangent now, but I just think there's so much power. It goes back to that grace and that divine feminine. It's like trusting the natural chaos in our own bodies and not feeling like, well, I have to do this posture and then this posture and then this posture and then this posture. Like, how about we just see what we want to do? I don't know.
Yeah, I think that, yeah, that's exactly it. I always say, you fill out the pose, right? You fill out the movement, just like, how when we get dressed, like we look different, like I'm going to look different in your clothes and it's because of our inside energy, right? That brings out, that fills out that outfit. And it's the same thing in our movement. It's like, it's not just the teacher calling out like the movement or the pose, but it's what you bring to it. And then it's through these little details that get you to express yourself, that makes it all look different and feel different for everyone. So yeah, I think, yeah, I mean, it's like for ballet, for me is such a, like, I still I watch a performance and I still like, I'm like sitting there, like all teared up. Like it does something to me that nothing else does. It's just, and like, it's what you're talking about. It's the energy that dancers just convey through the positioning of their hands and their, the way they move. And that's what I want to sort of, translate through the graceful movement. It's a beauty, but it's not, it doesn't have to be just aesthetically beautiful. It's an inside energy that makes it look so beautiful because it's a spirit energy that, and I know you mentioned this lines thing because I'm all about first alignment, but the lines, right? The line of energy. And I think that's why when, I will see, and I'm sure, as a teacher, you will see this, right? When you get someone in that alignment, right? Or you explain to them what they're supposed to feel in that pose or movement, whatever. Then you see the light bulb go on in their eyes, right? And they're like, oh, that's what this is supposed to feel. And so I feel like that's my job, right? To get people to feel it and go, okay, that's why I'm here. Like, I feel it now. I feel the energy flowing just because I changed the position of my arm and I took a breath and yeah. And I was, so going off on
no, I love it. And it makes me think of, one of the classes I taught, and I remember I had someone who was new to yoga and larger in size. And we did some headstands and I got her to understand the alignment of it and to get into one, and the tears that came out of her eyes, like recognizing that, we have so much power in our bones and our structure. And I think we get so beat down about our size and our looks and all these things, especially as women. And you're right. Like there's a power when you get into the right alignment in any pose, it's like, okay, like
this is what I'm doing this for.
This is the energy I've been looking for. I'm curious, you've traveled a lot around the world. I'm curious, what inspired that and what has all of the travel and living in different places inspired for you?
Yeah. Well, it's my husband's job. That's brought us to different places. And we lived in Kansas for 2 years. That was our first journey. And then we moved to Paris for 10 years. And now here I'm in London just a year. And really the Graceful Movement was born in Paris. So, wow, what a journey that was. And being in that culture where, there wasn't a lot of movement going on. It's not a very sporty culture as far as, exercise. So when I got there, it was just like sort of starting to build.
Mm-hmm.
And it was quite difficult, I think, to get women especially to let go. I think they didn't know what to do with me when I first started teaching. And I was the American that was like, hi, and, let's move. And they weren't used to something like that. And then once they, trusted me and saw that it was authentic and they felt good, it really grew there. And so, but I worked really hard in trying to, and then I had the language barrier. So that was pretty tough. But France is like near and dear to my heart. I mean, they supported me so much and I got so many great opportunities there. And I travel back once a month to Paris. I teach my clients on Zoom 3 days a week in Paris. So they've remained very loyal. And it was a wonderful, and it'll forever be my home, Paris. But yeah, I mean, it was challenging, and I putting myself in so many different situations where I was the only English speaker,
Mm-hmm.
and half the time thinking they don't even understand me, maybe. And so that there is a perfect example of energy, right? Like,
Mm-hmm.
they may not understand me, I don't understand them, but we connected through good energy, and that's how a lot of them just became to become my clients. But it was truly like, I'm just going to be me and put it out there. And it was well received. And, so now I'm here in London having to rebuild. And that's pretty scary. It's really scary, actually. And it's funny because I speak the same language, but yet I feel like I don't, in many ways.
Yeah.
It's still a different culture. And it's different. I mean, I think it also worked in Paris because, it's the arts culture, it's, the ballet culture. And so I think they really appreciated, they didn't want this, masculine sort of practice. So they really connected to me through this feminine sort of practice. London, I find, is a little bit more like the States. I feel like, it's more of a power type, a little bit more masculine. So it'll be interesting to see, but I'm kind of like, I'm going to be me. And you want to attract like-minded. And if, people get you, they get you, and they don't, they don't. Like, I'm at that point in my life where I'm like, I'm not going to force anything because we know forcing anything on the mat and off the mat doesn't work.
Yeah, it's so true. And Paris, it's, I've had my spiritual journey here, and parallel to it has been my career in fashion. And, going to Paris, it is very feminine, and it's obvious the minute you get there. Like, for me, it was obvious, like, why these designers, why there's couture, and why, Gabrielle Chanel did what she did. And I mean, you can just feel it's like the pulse of the city is just so, it is graceful, its own right.
And the French, what I appreciate about the French culture is their attention to detail. I think that's what is just so very sort of forthright. I mean, it's like their attention to detail is just incredible, and it doesn't have to be big, but it's just that little pop of color, and that just pulls it all together. That that I felt like we were definitely aligned in that way.
Yeah, it's a special place for sure. I mean, just I'm hoping, I have 4 stepkids, so I'm hoping to get them there in the next couple of years, because I think it'll be, going to Paris was life-changing for me. Like, it's a place I think everyone should go to, but it's very inspiring. Like, there's just nothing like it. I mean, there just isn't, in my opinion, nothing like it.
That's what it just has, that inspiring energy all the time.
Totally. Totally. So let's take a moment before we run out of time. I really want you to be able to share with everyone like what you're offering, how they can connect with you, what you have coming up, so that folks who are interested and inspired by our conversation can find you.
Yeah, thank you. So the Graceful Movement is, a mixture of from dance, all styles of dance, Pilates and yoga. It's always different, always fun, but all the essentials are always there. Really focused on developing good posture, healthy range of motion and strength, and just good energy, feeling good when you walk out. And I teach on Zoom, and I will be launching my own the Graceful Movement platform in November.
Yay, congratulations. That's exciting.
Yeah, I'm really excited. So that's where I feel like it suited me best because I move around so much, and, that's where you can reach me wherever I am, and people can have access to my classes on demand. And I hope to be doing some retreats. I'm not really well known in the US because, it was born in Europe. So I would love to, this is why it's so great that you're having me on, because hopefully I can reach more of my fellow Americans.
Yes.
Yeah. But always on Instagram, of course. But I found like I didn't have one place where I can communicate. So this platform will be a place where I teach all my Zoom classes, on-demand classes. I'm also a holistic nutrition coach as well. So I'll also be having that service as well. I graduated from IIN, and you are also a Ayurvedic coach as well.
Yeah, Ayurveda. I practice functional Ayurveda, so I do the functional testing, but I utilize the Ayurveda principles to navigate the test results rather than the heavy supplementation and other things that go into that. So yeah. It's all goes hand in hand, doesn't it? I mean, it's kind of like you can't, because once you start moving, it becomes very clear. Like I have very distinct pattern. I'm either not moving, which means I'm not eating well either, or when you're moving, it's like you can't really. Yeah. You feel like you want to be cleared out. So, and it's all energy, and I talk about this in my book, but so I won't go too far onto a tangent, but our weight is our baggage, and so I think there's periods in our life where we carry baggage, and when we start to get the suitcase off us, then the nutrition piece comes in, because I think you want to be lighter. You're eating for your vibration is what I'm really trying to say. Yeah.
And that's why I think, I would encourage people to do trainings if you're at all interested in Ayurveda or yoga. Do a training. It doesn't mean that you have to become a teacher, but it really does, right? It just sends you on this whole other journey that you never thought was in you, and makes you just become so much more mindful about yourself. So I just encourage people to, definitely learn more, investigate, trust yourself, trust your instincts. There's nothing more, you know yourself better than anyone. And I think it's a culture of selling and telling, right? Telling us what we're not doing, and, you're wrong, and do this and take that pill and do this program. But, it's like, trust yourself and trust your gut. And I think that's the most, you're beautiful the way you are. And maybe it's just finding those little tweaks to enhance you, but you know exactly what you need. You just need that little inspiring moment to guide you to what you need.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Absolutely. And once you start, you can keep going. That's what the coaching is about. I don't know about you, but the coaching for me is definitely about like helping others to get moving, because we've all been there where we don't want to. And it's not just physically moving, it's moving your energy. It's spiritual movement. Yeah.
But it's hopefully like what I loved about when I did the IIN training was about, not telling not telling people what to do, but empowering them to connect to themselves to figure it out, right? It's like a real sort of empowering moment that, oh, I do know, like I have the power. I'm so much more powerful than I think. So yeah, it's just, but it's a journey and it changes all the time, right? All the time. Like it's a constant. And I think that's what is really beautiful too, because we're always changing, and that's okay. It doesn't have to all be figured out at once.
Yeah.
It's a process.
Absolutely. And that's the organic part of it. That's the being in flow and surrendering, right? The Ishvara Pranadhana, like it's the surrender to whatever's there and being in the flow of it all and not trying to control it, because the control is what gets us in trouble every time.
Yeah. And it's messy and sometimes it's not pretty, and, but that's okay. Like, it's okay to just let it all come out. Right.
Yep.
And like, I love that animated, inside out, that animation.
Oh
yeah. Like it's such a great movie about like really letting kids explore all feelings are good, right? It's you can't always walk around like this, right? That's a whole other energy. So it's like, it's all beautiful, it's all joyful.
Yeah. Well, and it loops back around to the whole concept of the graceful movement, which is moving to let it out, and you're not going to let it out the same way every day. And I think there's something happening beyond you and me. It feels like there's a movement in general with teachers who are teaching any kind of movement practice or health and wellness coaching or anything, where we're recognizing and acknowledging and shifting our own work to more of this organic flow and away from this rigid, structured.
That doesn't work for
everyone.
Right? Like that's the thing. It's like, we're all so different. So, we can't just, one size fits all movement either. It just doesn't work, and then I feel like people feel pressured because, my best friend does that and she loves it. So why don't I? But, no, it doesn't. It's really about like what you just said. I think we're shifting and realizing that, it needs to be more organic and playful, really playful, I think is a key word to always keep in mind. Like explore, see what feels good. And I think that's what the whole message is, feeling good. When you walk away, how do you feel? Like I always ask my clients, like, just notice, take a pause and notice after class, like, how do you feel? Do you feel good? Do you feel lighter? Do you feel depleted? And I think, that's really important to, keep focused on, how do you feel before class and after class? And then you decide, you make the choice, and maybe it's the teacher, like I think there's a teacher for everyone. And I think it's important to know that too, right? That you have to have that connection with the teacher. Sometimes it's the way a teacher, right? The way a teacher says something, you could hear it over and over again, but it's the way it was framed that inspired you.
Yeah.
That makes you go, oh yeah, I think I've heard that a million times, but the way she said it really resonated with me. So yeah, I think that's part of the whole process.
Yeah, it absolutely is. How the teacher holds the space, how the space feels, all of those things go into it for sure. I really have loved having you on. I love your energy. I definitely am tuned into your work and want to continue to follow it. And everybody who's listening and watching, please go over to the Graceful Movement on Instagram, and you can find all of the links below in the notes as well. For those of you who listen later on audio, we're on 10 different audio platforms. So everybody who's listening there, there'll be information in your show notes as well, and on Apple Podcasts and all of that. Last minute parting words of wisdom today, Jennifer.
Wow, that's like, I just think authenticity. I think that, when you're authentic and when you really truly believe in yourself, it just shines through. And then everyone else, is also receiving that and is also clear with who you are. I think it's just really sort of letting go of the guard, and you're beautiful the way you are. Just let yourself shine, be authentic, and everyone else will see it and receive it well.
Beautiful. Agreed. Well, it has been a pleasure having you on.
Well, and thank you so much, really.
Watching.
Be in touch, and yeah.
Yes, absolutely. We definitely need to connect again. I think there's a lot more to say here. And for everybody who's watching, thank you so much. I only have 2 shows left this year that I have planned. So tune in. I have Katie Silcox coming on, who is the founder of the Shakti School and the writer of Happy, Healthy, Sexy. And she has a new book out called Glowworthy, and she's awesome. And I went through her program. That's where my certification's from. So she'll be on in a couple weeks. And then our long-awaited guest, Dr. Jennifer Freed, who is an astrologer and psychologist, and she's really amazing. She's going to be on, I think, in October. And then we're kind of wrapping up the year this year. I'm kind of a little quiet. So that's what's upcoming. So thank you all for watching. Thank you, Jennifer, for being here. So appreciate you.
Honored. Yes. Thank you so much. Thank you, community.
Thank you. Bye, everyone.
Bye.